Hey guys, I'm Katie.
And I'm Alexis, and this is the Check Your Aesthetic podcast. Hey.
Hey.
Hey. Ooh.
I didn't tell you this earlier, but I love your sweater. I love that color. For everybody who's not watching YouTube, Alexis is wearing, is it lilac?
It's like a blue.
Okay, that might be the same color as my nails.
I think it is. Wow.
Yeah, I just got my nails done. I
bestie.
asked the nail lady, I was like, what are people getting right now? And she said this color. I said, okay, give it to me. And I usually don't like getting like blue on my nails, but this one is like not offensive.
This color's kind of making my eyes look.
Oh, wow. You're really serving right now. I think I just
Blue.
saw your whole titties.
Oh.
Awesome.
Sorry, Kennedy. Oh, well. She
And
makes
literally
a TikTok
everyone
out
else.
of my boobs. Oh, yeah. Everyone else too.
Literally everyone watching.
YouTube.
Love it so much. But okay, I want to hear, actually everyone wants to hear about the shitstorm that occurred for you this weekend.
Okay.
You just gotta make it quick,
that.
but
I'm gonna do that quickly, but I'm first gonna introduce our guest because it will be, even the quick version is long.
Yeah.
So we had, and I literally royally messed up her last name, even though like we specifically asked, how do you pronounce?
I phonetically spelled it on this document. Okay.
Galeoto. And I was like totally fine with saying that. And then I literally said, I don't know, but it's Gina Galeoto. She is a TikToker. I found her on my For You page a little while ago. And I remember as soon as I one of her videos popped up, and I immediately sent it to Katie and was like, we need her. She's podcast. And she agreed to come on, which I was so excited about.
Yeah. So she's
so sweet.
She technically considers herself a creator mentor. She
Yes.
does have a TikTok, but she kind of offers services to help you, if you're listening, or anyone, take advantage of social media. So she helps creators and brands, which is awesome. So yeah, she was super cool. And we talked kind of specifically about being low energy or neurodivergent, and kind of how to still basically get shit done and take advantage of when you do have energy. But it was a really good conversation and very validating to somebody who
do be having mental illness,
who do be suffering from some mental illnesses. So anyway, sorry, I just trailblazed you, or that's not what that means. I just railroaded you and said,
oh yeah, okay.
She's not that. I didn't mean to be annoying.
You're good. You're good.
You guys know that's one of my specialties. So anyway, Alexis had a crazy weekend.
Yeah. I feel like I've told this story like 30 times by now, but I guess that means that I'll be able to sell it relatively quickly. So I was supposed to go to one of my best friend's weddings this past Saturday. I was supposed to get to the airport at 3 a.m.
If you guys can't tell by the supposed to's, she did not go.
No, didn't happen. So yeah, I guess I already gave it away. But so I was supposed to get to the airport at 3 a.m. It was 9 o'clock the night before. My other best friend, who was the maid of honor, I was a bridesmaid, calls me, says, our flight's canceled.
You're like, okay.
Sick.
Oh, that's awesome.
So immediately it's a frenzy. My best friend's name is Carly. She ended up getting, and she was going with her family, so she ended up getting a flight out of Boston at in the morning the next day. So she and her family ended up driving to Boston starting at 1 a.m. No one got any sleep. Austin and I were basically, it's a whole shitstorm, but basically our connecting flight was Burlington to LaGuardia to Missouri. And we thought we would still have our flight from LaGuardia to Missouri because the one from Burlington was the one that was canceled. Turned out Delta had switched my flight to Boston, but the Boston flight was going to be getting in the day of the wedding, and like in the afternoon. So Austin and I, at 11 o'clock at night, 2 hours after we had found out about the cancellation, we got in the car and started on our 7.5 hour drive to LaGuardia. My phone was not charged, so I had to have my phone charging in the car, but when that is happening, you can't listen to music. So my phone was being charged and also doing navigation with Waze. Austin was on the phone with Delta trying to call Delta and be like, hey, we still want our flight out of LaGuardia at like 9 a.m. And so it was 4.5 hours of us driving through the night. It was super
on the phone
foggy.
with Delta all
on the phone with Delta. So there was like the hold music the whole time, 4.5 hours of us driving. Then finally, Austin still hasn't gotten on the phone with Delta yet. And people are calling us like through this time. It's horrible. Austin, it was so bad. We were like laughing at how bad it was because it was just like ridiculous how horrible it was. And so then finally people are calling us, whatever. Caitlin, who was getting married, she's like, you guys should, even though it sucks, like just use the Delta like messaging app. So we use that. Austin gets us a flight because we somehow can't get the same flight that we originally were going to have, even though a bunch of people from Burlington weren't going there anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
We got a flight out at 7 p.m., but I realized, okay, well, I'm not about to go sit in an airport for 14 hours. Mm-hmm. So I just take the first exit because I was so tired. It was like 3:30 in the morning. Pull into a gas station, call my dad. Austin, because the whole town is still going. Katie's laughing because she knows what happens next. So I'm calling my dad because I'm like, okay, do we turn around at this point? Do we get like what happens? What happens next? Do we just book it to LaGuardia? Like what's happening? Austin, because the hold tone was going, Austin starts putting down like with his finger on the sound to turn the sound down, accidentally hits the lock button and hangs up on Delta after like 3.5 hours.
I know that it's not Austin's fault. I know how exhausted he was. And like, I literally love Austin, but you are the most patient person. I would have committed a crime. If that was my fiance, I would have said, you're walking back to Vermont. I would have been enraged.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was so like, and he was,
I don't like, at all think that he deserves that, but I would have acted in that manner because I am a badly behaved person.
He was honestly more upset than I was. I just was like, I don't even care. Like, I just need to sleep, something's happening. And so of course my poor dad, my dad is in the military, if any of you know that already, I don't know, but he was very like, as soon as I called him, like,
if any of you know that, the way you've talked about it so many times.
You're
like, if any of you ever heard of my dad,
he's in the military. But no, he like definitely went into like crisis management mode, which like, he definitely yelled at me while I was crying a few times, but like, that's okay. It ended up like being helpful, but he got us like a hotel within like 15 minutes. We were like, at the hotel. And we slept until noon. Then the next day I realized, okay, so we either have the option of driving another like 4.5 hours, waste gas prices, horrible. So like so much. And then I realized our returning flight would either be back to Burlington because we were flying out of Burlington. So either we have to go to Missouri, then fly back to Burlington, and then I would have to pay for 21 hours of gas, because probably more than that, because it would be like Austin and I driving to New York City and then 2 of us driving back. So that's like over 21 hours because it's really probably more like 8 hours with traffic. So, or we try to get on a flight to LaGuardia, but that's not a guarantee. And we could also end up sitting in some random airport somewhere. So then I get texts from Caitlin and Caitlin's dad that now there are a few flights out of Burlington that are available.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So I'm already exhausted, both emotionally and physically. But like, this is my best friend. I'm going to at least try. Like, I kind of knew in my head and my heart, like, this isn't happening. Like, it's just not, but like, I gotta at least like make the effort. So we turn around and start going back to Vermont, and we're we're not getting there in time. Like, it's just not happening. We're on the phone with Delta trying to, because like I've already changed my flight, so I can't change it again because there's no reason for me to change it. Because like before, since it was canceled, I could choose whatever flight, but like now I can't unless I talk to someone.
Yeah.
And the hour wait, like it was literally a 4.5 hour wait. So we keep calling, the call keeps dropping because we're in like the mountains. And so finally my dad ended up calling and was just like, look, because honestly, these flights were $1,000. So my dad was like, if we want to get this money back, we got to just call it and like cancel. And I remember I was driving, sounds so dramatic, but like I was driving, it was my car. We realized later, like, why didn't Austin drive? But whatever. But I was driving and like, we literally almost had to like pull over on the interstate because I was crying so hard that like, because it was like, I knew when we got in the car, like this probably isn't happening, but just to finally like hear it. And like, I couldn't call Caitlin because it was literally actively her rehearsal dinner right then. Then it was going to be her, or no, it was her rehearsal. Then it was going to be the rehearsal dinner. Then her bachelorette party was that night. And then it's her wedding day. Yeah. So I couldn't talk to her at all. It was really, really sad. Her wedding was beautiful. I'm so happy for her. She's married. She's on her honeymoon right now.
Congrats, Caitlin.
Yes. Love you, Caitlin. Ended up sitting in my bridesmaid's dress in this exact chair. Yeah. Literally like not at all Caitlin's fault, literally at all, but I definitely did feel like the like stood up prom date girl.
Yeah, like it's Delta's fault. The moral of this entire story is literally, if you're flying right now, beware and hope for the best. Like caution. Keep your fingers crossed. But anyway, to not make this the longest episode we've ever recorded in history, I don't have any interesting updates for you guys other than that I went to the St. Patrick's Day parade this weekend and had just a fantastic time.
She saw Florida,
and I'm a little leprechaun. Just kidding, but yeah, I really don't have much to say. I've started working on my website. So again, if you guys need a social media manager, like I am literally your girl. But for real. Anyway, I guess we should just go ahead and get into the episode because there was some really, really good stuff in here.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah. So keep listening to hear all of the amazing things Gina had to say.
Hi, Gina. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Of course. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited that you agreed to come on. As soon as I remember you came up on on the For You page, and I was like, oh my God, this fits so well to everything that we've talked about, Katie and I, and things that we've talked about on the podcast, things we've talked about, just the two of us as friends. So like, we have to get this girl on the podcast. So I'm so excited you're here.
Me too. I love talking about this. I feel like it's so important. So I'm like so ready to get into it.
Heck yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for any of our listeners who are like, hello, who are you? And maybe are not familiar with you and your content.
Sure. So I'm a content creator and a social media mentor. So I work with brands and I work with individual creators, and I'll work with brands to either create content or to advise on their social media strategy. And then with creators, same. I really like to work with creators who have like a mission and they want to do something with their content and like create an impact with it. And so I will help them do that and grow and monetize and spread their message.
I love that. I love that you work both on the brand side and the creator side. I feel like that gives you good insight for both of those people on what the other is like thinking about.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is definitely really valuable to your clients on both sides.
Yeah, I love to share about that. It feels like I have like a little inside scoop on both sides.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I know what they want. Do you want to make money? I know what they want you to do. Yeah, I love that. So how did you kind of get started in content creation, like personally, and then what like prompted you to decide to start helping other people?
Yeah, so I started thinking about it as an alternative to 9-to-5 life because I just didn't feel like the 9-to-5 lifestyle fit me. I didn't feel like I would succeed and thrive and be happy in that lifestyle. And actually I started thinking about content creation back in 2018. So a really long time ago, even before that, thinking about it. But I started practicing in 2018 and I wanted to be like a travel influencer on Instagram. So I went on trips with my husband and, we practiced taking content, but I had this lack of I guess confidence. I had imposter syndrome to really put myself out there. And I also had this fear that I wouldn't have the energy to follow through and be successful because I just hadn't learned to take advantage of my motivation at that time. And so, yeah, I practiced and practiced. And what I ended up with was this like skill in photography instead, since I wouldn't put myself out there with my content.
Yeah.
And I became more of like a photography content creator because that's what I felt like more comfortable with whenever I still didn't have that confidence. And it turned out that my audience was a lot more interested in how I was gaining all of my photography clients without paying for a single penny in ads. I was booking everybody through social media marketing.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with my love for content creation bubbling back to the surface, I was like, I would love to tell you how I did this.
Yeah.
Right.
Please, let's talk about it. So that passion kind of pushed me, that passion to help people pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit. And that's how I made the switch over into actually helping people with content creation. So it's kind of this like long full circle moment, but I'm obviously so grateful for it.
Right, definitely. So what I was talking about earlier when you popped up, you were on my For You page, you were talking about the concept of low energy and kind of being a content creator and an entrepreneur and someone who works from home and just all of those things, all the things that we talk about on this podcast and having that low energy. So can you explain that concept a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's so important to kind of define because, of course, everyone can have a low energy moment or a slow day. But people who are chronically low energy, it can be either because of chronic illness or like things like depression or anxiety. Tons of other mental disorders could cause it, obviously. It could be someone who just is more of a neurodivergent thinker who's trying to fit themselves into that neurotypical like bubble. That's exhausting, whenever you're trying to like change yourself in that way.
Yeah.
And so those are the people who I usually am referring to whenever I say low energy. It could also be people who are just working multiple jobs or things like that. But the reason I think it's just so important to actually define it is because back in the day, I just gave myself this huge lazy complex. Like I was like, God, you can't follow through with anything. Like you are so lazy. Why can't you do it? And it was really a toxic cycle because that complex made me think for the future that I wasn't going to succeed too. And it kind of was like this really vicious cycle. So I want to help people avoid that. And so that's why I like to define it and just talk about it and help people realize it's not that you're lazy. You just have to take advantage of your motivation and in your energy levels and your own personal cycles instead of listening to all of these resources, which are usually, let's face it, like pretty neurotypical. And yeah, so that's how I would kind of define low energy on my end.
Yeah. And Alexis and I, we've talked about this on the podcast, but we both I have anxiety and Alexis has depression. I was like, is this okay? It is. But yeah, Alexis has depression and I'm sure anxiety too. But we both we constantly talk about the idea of and this is not the podcast. This is in our voice memos that we're sending to each other in the mornings. Alexis is sending me a voice memo. She's like, so it's raining and I literally cannot make myself do a single thing. And I'm like, okay, no, same. I actually have sat and pretended to work for a really long time and I've done nothing. So I'd love to hear kind of your journey of getting to a good spot yourself, where like you said, kind of realizing that you're not lazy. Cause I think that's something that Alexis and I beat ourselves up for all the time. And I'm sure a ton of people listening do as well, especially when you're kind of an entrepreneur and working for yourself. There's not that somebody behind your back that you it's kind of an external motivation. You kind of have to do that internally. So what was that journey like for you? And what are some tips you have?
Yeah. Well, like you ladies, I have my own brain stuff and I have OCD, I have anxiety, I have all that stuff going on. And I did end up going to therapy and it was this huge realization for me, I guess, that like you can rewire your brain completely, and that like your brain actually can kind of betray you a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that realization just like it kind of took the guilt off of my shoulders a little bit, realizing, okay, like I got diagnosed with my OCD and I realized I'm not just lazy, I'm just a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of pushed me into learning different ways and learning about different energy cycles, and that people even do feel differently about that. Because again, before you think oh, everybody doesn't feel this way,
Yeah.
Right.
when you learn
Yeah.
about it.
Right.
So that's how I overall just was like, okay, I'm going to start just making it a journey, making an effort, and tiny steps and failures along the way every single time, is what kind of made me learn what works for me.
I think also like an interesting concept that like at least I know I've struggled with is like you don't know what people are going through, so then you can like you compare yourself, whether you know if they're neurotypical or neurodivergent, like you don't know what their dealings are. So I know that I totally compare myself, and like this person might have like a completely like easy time, you know, getting up in the morning and going to the gym at 6 in the morning and then immediately coming home, showering, do it like, you know, all of these things. And it takes me a bit longer, but then I compare myself to that person. And I'm like, wow, I'm such a lazy piece of shit that like, you know, maybe I either don't do those things or I do those things. And it takes so much energy for me to get to that place. So I think just like in this concept, like giving yourself like grace and like understanding of your own mind is really important. And I think that that's something I know at least I'm personally still working on.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that when you think of that person who does get up early in the morning and they, you know, do their yoga and they make their green smoothie and all of that stuff, for someone who is low energy, that would be exhausting to do all before the work day. And for them, for the person who's doing it, it could be very necessary to get them into work
moving
mode.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, it's just about kind of, like you said, giving yourself that grace of realizing, like, why are you judging yourself for doing what works best for you, but you're not judging them for doing what's best for them. So
right, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all of that mental awareness, I think, which comes with a lot of time, obviously, and patience.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I feel like this kind of fits in with the whole like that girl thing that was going on
I was
around on
just
TikTok,
about to say that.
which like I've seen enough criticism of it now that people are fine, like people are realizing that it's like not realistic.
Yes,
But I think something interesting about all of that and just being a content creator in general, and then trends like that come along, is that even like for me, something that's interesting is, you know, I'm not good in the afternoons. I'm better in the mornings. I'm not good in the afternoons. But if I'm like filming a day in my life, I'm going to literally pretend that I'm doing things all day and like literally just like pretend that like
you're going to plan stuff for the afternoon.
No, like I'm doing something this afternoon, even though it's just not the case. But I think, don't worry, guys. Rue's digging a tunnel in my apartment right now. Hey,
she's like, bye.
She's like, I don't want to hear this. I gotta go. But I think that being a content creator, there's even more pressure than just a normal person to, I guess, pretend that you feel amazing all day and that you're so productive. And I think that that's an interesting thing too. So what are kind of your tips for, I don't know, kind of like mindset stuff, I guess, more than actual content? You're not going to sit here and be like, do pretend that you did stuff all day, but like kind of how did you make that mindset shift in a way that worked for your content still?
What's so funny, and again, it does come with like practicing and doing it. And I never would have accepted this before when I was still scared to post, but people just want to relate to you, like just more than like truly. I mean, even if you know, if they're looking at that girl routine, and even if they can't relate to it, it's usually because they want to be able to relate to it and get themselves there. And it's just about like, who do you want to talk to? Like for me, when I started posting that low energy content, it was because I decided like there's no way. I mean, there's billions of people in the world. I'm not the only one who feels like this
way. Right.
And so it's just like, so you have a sloppy house in your day in the live video, so do millions of other people, and they're going to appreciate you for posting that. You know, you want to take a nap in the middle of the day instead of being productive. Amazing. Like, I would love actually to see you do a day in the life video where you're like, and guess what? Then I took a nap because that's what works for me, you know? So that mindset, I think, is what helped me. And it's like, you don't realize that until you actually start letting yourself be relatable and sharing yourself a little bit. And then you realize, oh wait, people like really like this. Like, I'm not alone. You know, we think we're so different than everybody, but really we're not. And it's a good thing, you know, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
I also feel like another thing that Alexis and I have talked about that I don't know if you have a similar experience is it has to do with age, but it also just has to do with COVID and time in your life and everything. When I was in college, I was doing things all day. I was like going all day long and I was never tired. And so then once COVID hit and I mean, I was still in college, but I was like not really doing much. And then I got older and then now I'm post-grad. I literally, if you told me to go back and do a day that I had like packed full, I'd be like, no, I can't do that. I'm going to fall asleep. Like I fall asleep at 9 p.m. Now I'm a grandma. But I feel like that's another thing that's hard is kind of comparing yourself to your past self. In that sense.
So true. Yeah. That's a really good point. And I mean, my transition was a little different. Like I was really high energy in high school, and then college was when I started being like, okay, because college was really hard for me as a low energy person. And so it was like in college, I did, just like you said, like I felt like something was wrong with me because I was comparing myself to my previous self. And I was like, okay, like something, you know,
something's up.
Like people, like everyone is still going out and thriving and all of this stuff. And for me, just adding that extra change from, you know, going from high school where the work's obviously a lot lighter and easier. And then the pressure of going to school, like turns out my energy reserve needed to be like one or the other, you know? And I didn't know that in high school yet. So yeah, it's just like I said, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It's learning those energy cycles, and just like, you know, that you don't do well in the afternoons, I'm sure you don't plan your high energy tasks for the afternoons.
Exactly.
So yeah, stuff like that, and just learning it. And it's so fun. It's so to psychoanalyze yourself.
100%. That's literally all Katie and I voice message each other.
I know. I'm like, we're like each other's therapists, but like we also both have therapists. So it's like, the therapist
psychoanalyzing each other and ourselves in the voice memos. But I think like with low energy, it's a really interesting concept when it comes to working from home as well, and like working for yourself, that so many people that work from the office, I think, are like, you know, I don't know. I also think like just kind of the older generation doesn't really understand the whole remote work kind of thing. But it is like honestly exhausting sometimes to work from home. Like it's such a blessing, and I genuinely don't really ever want to go back into working in an office. But you know, there are challenges with that. And I think that like energy is really like a huge component of that. So are there any kind of things that you've found in your own routine working from home and like for yourself that you've found help with like working from home with low energy?
For me, I really think the difference between like working in an office and working from home was more the accountability. Because for me, I'm more productive from home. If I have the same workload in an office versus at home, I'm going to be more productive at home just because I'm happier and I can manage it according to my energy cycles. Whereas at a 9 to 5, it's like, okay, these are the hours where you're doing these tasks, period. And so what I realized I was lacking when I started working from home was the actual accountability to do those things when I had planned them out according to those energy cycles, right? Because you can still get stuck in like a funk. And so that's another thing I learned about myself. Instead of taking one long lunch break, I have to take shorter bursts of breaks. Otherwise I'll get stuck in my little funk. So what I really like to think about is the 5-second rule. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's basically just the idea of the instant that you have a thought, you make within 5 seconds, you count to 5, and you have to make some kind of action by those 5 seconds. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can literally just be standing up to go do the task. And it kind of trains your brain to act right when you have that motivation, because as a low energy person, if you put it off during your high energy phase, then you're going to get back into a low energy phase, and you're definitely going to put it off during that one. And so you have to just train yourself to start acting as soon as you have that motivation.
I love that.
Yeah. It's really, and what's nice is that at first I felt some guilt around it, because like I would stand up and then like sit right back down. But what's nice is that you don't have to feel guilty, because it's still training your brain to act faster every time. And maybe the next time you'll make it halfway across the room, or something like that. And so that's what it's all about for me. It's just not feeling guilty whenever I don't have the energy to do something, and then holding myself accountable when I know I do have the energy to do it, but I just don't want to do it, because that's for everybody. I mean, even high energy people, don't want to do their work sometimes. So,
yeah, agreed. And I feel like a lot of like what you're talking about with like energy cycles and stuff is reminding me of, I took a sleep and dreams class, and we learned all about like circadian rhythms and everything, which that is all really just like, I mean, obviously everybody's on like a similar circadian rhythm, because everybody sleeps, well, not everybody, but most people sleep in the night.
The majority.
So most people sleep in the night, but there are natural dips in the day for all of us where like it's just not the best time for us to be. It's the reason why you don't literally wake up and immediately open up your laptop and start working, or at 9 p.m. you're not like, I mean, for some people that works, but you're not, that's why work hours are what they are, because that's your most productive time. But I think it is so individual. And I love like what you're saying about taking advantage of your motivation and paying attention to yourself, because I feel like people listening might be like, well, that sounds like a big task, but I feel like it's kind of all about just like trying things out and seeing what works. And that's what I've been doing. And I feel like you have to kind of reevaluate when things change in your life too. Like what worked for me in college obviously is not the same thing that's going to work for me now, because different tasks take a different amount of energy from you. Like maybe your work takes a ton of energy from you, but like going on a run to you is just not that, it's not that energy draining. Like
mental
it's
energy versus physical.
Yeah. I feel like it's so different for different people. Like, I don't know, for me, like having to get on any phone call always drains a lot more energy for me, probably because I have anxiety, than like, emailing or, anything like that, or actually like doing my work. And I think the same goes for like even being in the office and being at home. Like you said, you get more done when you're at home. I feel the same way, because I'm not using my social energy to like,
small
like
talk.
Exactly. So I think there's so many different kinds of energy that you have to think about. And like the only thing it's like work is not the only thing taking your energy, I guess. I don't know if taking your energy is the right phrase, but
I understand what you're saying though. I actually saw something recently on TikTok that was saying like, treat your job more like it is the side hustle, and treat like your lifestyle more like it is your full-time thing. And
we are going to take a quick break to talk about this week's sponsor, Tailor Brands. So one thing we cover all the time on our show is how important it is for new businesses to have a strong brand and online presence. But how many of us actually know how to build a brand and online presence completely on our own? That is where Tailor Brands comes in. So Tailor Brands is an AI-driven platform that automatically gives you everything you need to launch a beautiful brand and successful online presence without having any previous design experience. How amazing is that? Once you create a logo with it, which literally takes about 5 minutes, your design theme is automatically integrated into a website, unlimited designs for social media, a digital business card, and even printed business cards and merch, and you can access all of it through the Tailor Brands platform. One of the most amazing things about this is that I know so many of you listening have such a passion for business, but design may just not be your forte, and this really solves that issue for you guys and makes everything so easy. The great thing about it is that everything takes a few minutes to set up, so you can have an entire online presence by the end of the day. And you can get 40% off if you go to taylorbrands.com and use our code aesthetic40. Again, that's taylorbrands.com and code aesthetic40 to create an online presence for your business for 40% off.
So I guess on the same topic of kind of energy and everything, we talk about burnout a lot on the podcast. That's something that a lot of people experience, whether it's creative, whether it's just like you literally can't keep your eyes open, you're so tired, you hate your job, whatever it is. What do you think in your experience kind of leads to that? And what are your tips for kind of avoiding burnout?
Yeah. For me, it's so one, knowing when it's coming on, I think was really important for me, and not trying to like force yourself to work through it because you're not being aware enough to realize you need a break. And so I would always realize it's happening to me when I get posting paralysis, or I start like hating everything I create. I'm just like, ugh, I suck, anything like that is when I know I'm starting to get burnout. And so I think for most people, and for me, for sure, it's a result of over consuming other people's content because, and especially if you're low energy, because you have all these other people's ideas running around in your head, and you don't have room for your own creativity. And it's a lot of comparison too, which makes you hate your content a little bit sometimes, which just happens. We're all human. So I do have a rule on those when I start feeling like that, where I'll be like, I'm going to take a couple days and I'll hold myself accountable by sharing with my audience and telling them I'm going to be creating more than I'm consuming over these next couple of days. And so I'll be posting more those days. My audience will notice, and I will not be scrolling my For You page pretty much at all. And it's crazy because it feels so good every time, and I hardly even miss the scroll very much. Of course, I always go back to it. It's part of my job, but it feels amazing every time, and it's like almost an immediate like click idea download. And
that's awesome.
Download for myself.
No, that's actually such a good point. I've never heard of it like that, but that's I think that also, like, for me at least, I know that I had to put like a child lock on my Instagram and TikTok that after 2 hours a day, it like turns it off, but I have the code. So like I can get back in. But it does kind of like give myself like, and I made the password. I made the password dumb. So I'm telling myself that I'm dumb if I'm like I'm opening it.
So funny.
But I think like it's interesting that you can, or at least I do get into this like slump with consuming media. I don't think I ever thought of it like that, but it actually like low key kind of depresses me when I'm like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I don't even know if it's like necessarily always about like content creation and comparing myself, but it's just like you get into this like bodies or like or objects in motion stay in motion, objects at rest stay at rest. Like I feel like it's that kind of thing where you're like on the couch, you've been scrolling for like an hour, and like it's just you're not gonna like nothing's gonna stop you. So I feel like I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna try that.
It goes back to that 5-second rule kind of too. Like next time you have the thought like, oop, I've been scrolling for a little too long. Oftentimes we just let that thought like pass on by and we keep scrolling. So if you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have to either put it down or something like that, then that can help a lot. I also started doing small stuff like not bringing my phone to the bathroom and places where I do
need
not
to get better at that.
Like I was like, do I need to be like socializing at every minute of every day and like stimulating my brain at all times? Where can I set limits? So that was my small victory.
I've realized in myself that I have such a like I consume media like so quickly, where like that is one thing about working from home that like in the past I would like get home from work and be like, oh, I have a YouTube video, like 2 YouTube videos from like people I'm subscribed to that I could watch. Now like I literally watch them immediately, so I'm constantly like looking for new media to consume.
Well, there's so much out there.
And it's so hard, and then I end up like listening to a YouTube video every time I shower. Like I don't need to be doing that. Like it's so hard.
I also like, I personally definitely find myself like if I'm out of ideas, sometimes like looking for inspiration with other people, which that's not a bad thing. Like it's,
Right.
you know, it's not a negative thing, but
Right.
it literally like seldom do I actually come up with a good idea. Usually I'm
From
like,
that,
oh, I
yeah.
just wish that my videos were more like hers, or like, I wish that my Instagram feed looked like this. Like,
Exactly.
you know, it's just, I don't know. I think it's better to follow people that you like and scroll every once in a while, save something if you really like it and you want to come back to it. But like when I go and like search for inspiration, it literally never works. Never works.
Yeah. And I do think that's one thing I kind of talk about on my page too, is that you should try to come up with the context of your idea first. A lot of times we use it as an excuse to scroll, is to find trending audios. And so I'm like, you know, that's not really what's going to make an impact, you know, on your content. You should think of the context first anyway. So then that's kind of one way I talk myself out of scrolling sometimes too. It's like all of these little tricks you have to learn and limits you have to put on yourself eventually. Otherwise,
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. So I already know the answer to this question because I was stalking your page, but I'm still going to ask you anyways, so you can answer it on the episode. But what is your opinion on like scheduling out batch film days?
Yeah. So it's not wrong. Like, I don't think it's the wrong way. I just think it's really pushed down our throats as the right way. And I don't
for
think
content creation.
Yes, for content creation specifically. And I don't think it's always the right way. I think and that's another thing, like if I still had this complex of being super lazy and someone was yelling at me, like, why aren't you
do
getting
everything
up and
all at once?
20 videos.
Yeah.
So I would, for lower energy creators, it's just, there's no way to like set a date on your calendar and be like, this is the day I'm going to have loads of energy and like be ready to do this. And so for me, I would not follow through. I would get really sad and feel like I was a failure, or I would follow through, like force myself and then feel very robotic or just not natural, not authentic. So I just learned that creating intuitively was more realistic for me. It's more realistic for a lot of people. And that just means, like I keep saying, taking advantage of that motivation whenever you have it. And it can be as simple as, you know, if you have a content idea, just something like writing it down as an action toward a goal. And then later it will take, if you already have the concept written down, it will take minutes to actually film and edit that content. And so taking a few minutes per day is a lot more realistic for some people than like dedicating like 3 hours to this high energy task of getting all of them done. So that's how I feel about it. I think for some people, it might be the only way that works for them is batching. And for some people, it doesn't at all work.
And it's okay either way.
It's totally okay either way. And that's why I did have some people be like, you know, misconceiving when I was saying, when I talk about batching, and I don't want people to think that there's a wrong way at all. That's the whole point behind this conversation. Like everybody is so different and succeeds. You can succeed in different ways. There's no
way.
And I feel like another consideration with like batching is like, for me, that I feel like isn't talked about a lot, is like, what if you wake up and you're like, I look ugly today? Like you just aren't feeling yourself that day.
Not
you know,
a
like
confident
if you have like body image issues, or if you woke up with a breakout and then you're like, oh shoot, I've scheduled this, then you're literally just going to hate everything that you make. And so I think definitely like, I mean, honestly, if you wake up one day and you're like, I want to batch today, then go ahead and do it.
Exactly. And that still happens to me. And, you know, I won't make as many as I used to try to force back in the day, but also you'll just, everyone, you know, even when you're low energy, you'll get those peak moments and all this inspiration and all these downloads, and then I will go ahead and do it. Or like you said, I'll be like feeling myself. I'm like, you know what? People deserve to see this.
And I really
get on camera.
People need to see my face right now.
And I think it really is just like the hardest part of all this, I feel like, is like actually getting in tune with yourself and like being able to listen to yourself and understanding like when you're like, okay, my energy is out, rather than like, oh, I'm just in a bad mood, or like I need to eat something. Like there's a lot of,
or like,
exactly. Like there's a lot of different things that it could be. So I think like trying to really learn like how your brain reacts to things, to understand when like you're going to be better off moving on because you're not getting anything else done, kind of thing. or not getting anything else good done. But, okay. So I guess we've talked a little bit about this already, but what are some suggestions that you would give to someone who's struggling to kind of stay on task? I know we talked about like taking smaller breaks and things like that, but is there anything else that really helps you out?
Yeah, I did learn aside from your energy levels, you can take advantage of them not only by planning tasks for your peak energy levels, but also kind of delegating to yourself as if your energy levels were different people, which sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as an example, like if you treat your low energy person as like your employee and they do kind of the low energy monotonous stuff like emails and like, just like answering comments and DMs and editing TikToks on your phone and stuff like that. And then you treat the high energy task kind of like your CEO role. And that's the person who's like getting shit done and they are, making needle moving changes in your business. And that's the stuff like, when I'm having to hop on a coaching call, that's obviously a high energy thing. So I'll try to plan those things for those hours of my days.
Yeah.
So that's what really, really like, and it's so crazy because I feel like it's still a complex thing because if I think of my past self, even listening to this episode, all of this still sounds hard because it's so much mental training and mental and like and whenever motivation already feels like your pain point. And then we're like, okay, you just have to get the motivation to be very self-aware.
Yeah.
It's like, I want it just to be said, and we all know this on this call, but it's super not easy to put
it's not just like a quick
place.
fix that's
like
just do this and it'll be done and
exactly
like better.
Exactly. Even whenever I realized the employee versus CEO role thing, do you think I implemented that right away? Absolutely not. I knew it would be good for me. It took me a very long time to make that a habit, and I still thought it often. So and just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I agree. And I like what you said way at the beginning about when you went to therapy and like got diagnosed and that kind of changed the game. I think it's also really important if you are sitting here and you're like, okay, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have OCD, whatever you have. Therapy has helped me a ton too, just aside from everything. And like, if you need to be medicated, like, don't just think that there's some things that like you really like, you might just need like medication or something for.
You can't help
exactly.
Like, and if there's, whether it's medication or whether it's like, I don't know, therapy or just, there's other things you can do for things like that I think are important. But therapy has helped me a ton. I've literally talked to my therapist about like, I can't make myself do my work. And like, we've had full, conversations about that. So I think it might not be something that you automatically think is like a therapy kind of conversation, but it might be. So that's just consideration. But
that's so true. We don't think enough about how the small things are ultimately what most of us are struggling with the most, kind of. And that I think that is a result of assuming that everybody else has their shit together when none of us have our shit together.
Yeah. And I think it's like those things that you have to face every single day. Like you have to work every single day. Like basically, like you have those things you have to do every single day. They become bigger. And I feel like something with therapy that this is like kind of unrelated, but like, I feel like a lot of people think that like you go to therapy because someone died, or you go to therapy because, you got in an accident, or you go to therapy because whatever. But like, when you're consistently going to therapy, you're talking about these smaller things that are smaller. I mean, they happen every single day, but things like motivation and things like burnout and things like, especially with the pandemic, my therapist, like, and I've talked a ton about just the way that that's affected the way that people think, attention span, like consuming so much content that your brain is numb kind of thing. But yeah, I think that when you go to therapy more consistently, those things kind of come up. So if you're sitting here thinking like, I don't need therapy, but I do have anxiety, like, honestly, it might be worth it. So I don't know. Y'all know that I'm like if therapy proponent number 1 on the podcast.
Same. I've got your back on that. I'm like, because even just listening to you say that, it's like it's the little things, but you said they happen every day, and so that's life. The things that happen every day is your life. So if you're struggling with the daily things, those are the big things.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah,
Not
all
the
those
one-off
little things add up
occasions. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
big things.
The
Totally
big things
agree.
are the things that you should be struggling with, and the small daily things are things that, coping with will make your life so much easier and happier.
Exactly.
I feel like,
Yeah.
I've thrived a lot more
Smoother.
from coping. Yes, exactly. Smoother.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
I totally agree.
Definitely. Okay, so finishing up before we switch into random questions, how can people work with you, do the coaching? Let us know everything that you offer to your customers.
Sure. So I offer one-on-one coaching, both in the long term and in the short term. So I'll do 1-hour calls with you. I'll do long-term, monthly, have access to me every single day, mentorship as well. So it just depends on how high level your goals are. And then I'll also do profile audits. So if you just need another pair of eyes on your social media accounts and need a tailored advice on how you can reach your goals based using social media, then I can give an audit on that as well. So those are the 3 ways that I can coach and I can help if anybody needs it.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's get into random questions that I chose all by myself and told everybody that they had to do. But the first one is, what is your current favorite TikTok trend or sound? This is going to be so funny because I know we're all about to be like singing and
I know. I was
trying to explain like TikTok sounds. But Gina, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So mine is the one where it's like crazy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like all of these like wronged women like talking about all of the badass things they've done.
That.
I'm just like, I really look up to you ladies. You're
I
awesome.
saw one that was like, my toxic trait is that I don't think anything on this trend is crazy. Like this all seems like normal behavior to me. I was like, I kind of feel that. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm rooting for all of these women. I don't know what's abnormal about this behavior.
I love it. Alexis, what is yours?
Mine is I definitely don't support this message, but Kim Kardashian.
Oh yeah.
Like get your effing ass up and work. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to work anymore. And then Kourtney Kardashian, who's like known for being the one that didn't want to work, is like, that's so true.
So funny.
I know. I love the way people have used that one.
I know. I feel like I just love seeing how creative people can get, because somehow I listen to the same sound over and over again and like rarely get tired of them.
I know, it's still funny.
But yeah. Well, I'm really bad to have to sing. So I don't know if this is on everyone's For You page because I've only seen like a couple of them, but it's the sound that's like Miami, and it's like me scanning a Samsung TV for the price of an apple, and then this picture of an old man in a Walmart uniform, and he's like, "Have a great day." It's like just this. It's kind of wholesome.
Yeah,
like they're so sweet. It's like me at the Cracker Barrel ordering, and then it's like, "Hey, darling, what you gonna get today?" I love it. I think it's so sweet.
It's rare to find a wholesome one these days. You gotta
I know,
hold on
and
to those
of course,
ones.
people have kind of ruined it with their stealing from the Walmart self-checkout, but I still think it's sweet. I just also like the song has been stuck in my head for days. So
of course, well,
congrats TikTok, you've done it again.
Yeah, exactly.
As always.
I was gonna say, it's gonna
really
be a week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the last and final question is, what is your favorite TV show that you have watched recently?
Oof. Okay. So if we're talking along, like I watched most recently Gilmore Girls, but it is not a new show, but I have to talk about it. It's my favorite show in the entire world.
So it's Alexis's.
Oh my
too.
God. I've literally watched it like every episode 100 times.
Yeah. I refer to it as my comfort show. Like if I could have the la la la's like in the background of my life, I would have that.
Yes.
But as far as a new show, I really liked that, gosh, I think it's a Hulu show, like Only Murders in the Building or something.
That's
it has Selena Gomez.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. That one was fun and cute and like suspenseful.
The cast for that one was so interesting because when I saw it, I was like, this is going to be bad because like these people don't make sense together. But then it was great. It was a good one. Alexis, do you watch a lot of TV?
Not really. I mean, I have in the past week and a half. I've been off. I go to SCAD for grad school, and I've been off for the last week and a half. So I've been watching a lot more TV. But Austin and I've been watching. We've already watched it. Like we only started watching it like less than a year ago. But Schitt's Creek, we've seen it so many times at this point. Like it's just like on repeat. honestly, I kind of think that Austin likes it more than I do. But that's my fiance. But
that's my husband's name.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, y'all got some weird similarities going on
Gilmore
here.
Girls.
Besties.
Oh my God. Yeah, actually, my fiance proposed to me with 1,000 yellow daisies, like in Gilmore Girls. I'll send you
Stop.
pictures.
I'm immediately divorcing my husband because
I love that. I'll tell him
Oh
you
my
said
God.
that. But no, this isn't really like my favorite, but it is definitely, I feel like it's a deep cut, but it definitely could also not be a deep cut. But it's Disenchantment. The new season came out. It's on Netflix. It's super weird. Like super weird. It's like a cartoon, but like for adults. And it's about like medieval times, sort of.
I should have known you pull some weird shit out for this one. I should have known.
Yeah, it's literally just what we were watching last night, so I can't really
Crazy.
think. Oh, I also watched if Austin, I know Austin can hear me right now, he'll be very proud of me that I'm saying this, but it took forever for me to watch Barry, and I really didn't want to watch it, but that's a very good show. It's on HBO.
Y'all got
maybe?
weird. Y'all be watching weird shit over there.
One.
Yeah, it's really good though. It's about this like murderer. It's really good. You guys should watch it.
Oh, well, that sounds like something I would like.
You would like it. Yeah.
Well, okay. So my favorite, I've watched a lot of new shows recently. I kind of have two, and they're both, McLean recommended both of them to me, and she like begged me to watch them, and I was like, no. And then I watched them and I was like, they were really good.
That's me and Austin all the time.
Abbott Elementary, it's on Hulu. And it's like a sitcom. It's about like teachers in a public school. And it's just, I mean, it's hilarious. It's so well done. It is like Parks and Rec, but in a school. And it's just like the kind of thing that like you didn't know you needed another one of them, but you did. It's so good. And then honestly, How I Met Your Father is pretty good. For like a reboot, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
like,
we tried that one. I feel like we're doing too much comparing. I think I'll try again.
See, okay. I haven't watched How I Met Your Mother in forever. So I kind of watched it as like its own thing.
Okay, that's better.
But I love Hilary Duff all the time. And she just, I really think I don't know. I thought it was cute. It's the kind of thing that you watch, like you don't need to be like
paying attention
to the screen, kind of thing. But yeah. And then, oh my God, I'm just going crazy. I watch so much TV. I don't watch movies. I only watch TV. But the woman across the street from the girl in the window, very long name. It was very good. I watched that in like 2 days, but it's scary. Alexis, you would like it. It's good.
Where is it?
Really good.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
But it's
go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I want to know.
I was gonna say, what about Ted Lasso? Has anybody seen Ted Lasso?
I love Ted Lasso.
It's just the most.
It's one of the best shows that I've ever seen. Seriously.
Me too.
It's got like everything. It has like everything in it.
Good.
I feel like that's all I've seen on TikTok. Like,
it's so good. Well, it's
all I've heard about.
It's like funny and sad and happy and so good. It's really, really well done. That's an Apple TV Plus one. But yeah, Ted Lasso is so good. I binged that over like Christmas. Maybe October. Maybe it was October. That's not when Christmas is. Anyway,
it's like feel good and not unrealistic and cheesy way. It's like it's very cute. Everyone will love it.
It's so good.
10.
Now that we've recommended you guys about 700
shows to watch,
half the show is
a good one. Today. But Gina, do you want to go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you and like how they can work with you and all that good stuff?
Oh, sure. So I'm on TikTok and on Instagram, and all of my information is at the link in my bio, and both sites are on both platforms. So you'll just be able to choose whatever seems best for you, or you can email me if you can't decide.
Yeah. And we'll have everything linked in the show notes so that you guys can find her.
Yes.
Perfect. Love it. The way that I just said that.
Love it.
Well, so you can find her.
Fine.
Anyway, bye. No. But yes, thank you, Gina. Thank you, Gina, for coming on. We appreciate it. And thank you to all of you guys for listening. Be sure to leave us a rating and review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to keep up with our weekly episodes.
And then follow us on TikTok at Check Your Aesthetic, and over on Instagram at Check Your Aesthetic Podcast, and our personal accounts, Katie Creative Co., Alexis Adams Aldrich, and Gia. No,
that's not it.
No, going too fast. Gina Galeoto.
Do you want me to say it?
Yes.
Gina Galeoto. It's a hard one.
You said gelato.
It's never been pronounced right in my life.
We're gonna get it right in the intro that we haven't recorded.
We're gonna get it right later. That's the same with my last name. Okay, but anyways, talk to you later. Bye guys.
Bye.